In 1941, a small black and white cat was found floating alone in the North Atlantic Ocean. The ship beneath him had just been destroyed. It was one of the most powerful battleships ever built, Germany's pride, the Bismarck. And for this little cat, it wouldn't be the last time. Hey everyone, welcome to Tales from the Past, the channel where we uncover the true stories of the cats who lived through history alongside us. I'm a lifelong cat person, and when I first came upon this story, I genuinely could not believe it was real. But as I dug deeper, I discovered that the core of the story is very real. Before we get into it, a tiny bit of context. It's 1941. World War II is well underway. Out in the Atlantic Ocean, German U-boats and battleships are hunting Allied ships every single day. Thousands of sailors on both sides are losing their lives at sea. It's one of the deadliest theaters of the entire war, and in the middle of it, there is a cat. This is the story of Unsinkable Sam. The Bismarck was not just any ship. Launched in 1939, it was the largest and most feared battleship the German Navy ever had, armed with some of the most powerful guns on the water. When the Bismarck set sail, the Allied Navy took notice. And somewhere aboard that mighty ship, living his best life, completely unaware of any of this, was a small black and white cat. His name at this point was simply Oscar. Ship's cats were completely normal in the Navy. They were a common sight aboard ships for hundreds of years. They were practical long before modern pest control. Ships struggled with rats and mice. These unwanted stowaways could chew through ropes, damage cargo, contaminate food supplies, and spread disease among the crew. Cats were the perfect solution. But honestly, the crews loved them for something much simpler than that. Life at sea was often difficult, lonely, and dangerous. Sailors could spend months away from home, facing storms, illness, and the constant risk of shipwreck or war. Cats provided companionship and a small sense of normalcy in an otherwise harsh environment. Many sailors also developed superstitions about cats. Some believed cats could predict bad weather or sense danger before humans could. Black cats were considered lucky on some ships, while harming a ship's new cat was thought to bring terrible fortune. Whether sailors believed those superstitions or not, one thing was certain: ship's cats were often loved by their crews. Oscar was exactly that for the crew of the Bismarck. But in May 1941, everything changed. The Bismarck set sail on what would become one of the most famous naval missions of World War II. At the time, Bismarck was considered one of the most powerful battleships ever built, stretching more than 800 feet long and armed with massive guns capable of striking targets miles away. It represented the pride of the Germans' navy. The ship's mission was to break into the Atlantic Ocean and attack Allied shipping routes. Britain depended heavily on supplies arriving by sea, and disrupting those supply lines could have a major impact on the war. As Bismarck entered the Atlantic, the British Royal Navy launched an enormous effort to find and stop it. What followed became one of the greatest naval hunts in history. The Royal Navy had been hunting the Bismarck for days. On May 24, 1941, they caught her in the Denmark Strait between Greenland and Iceland. The battle was brief but devastating. During the exchange of fire, Bismarck struck the British battlecruiser HMS Hood. One of Hood's ammunition magazines exploded, and within minutes, the ship broke apart and sank. More than 1,400 men were lost. The destruction of Hood shocked Britain and transformed the hunt for Bismarck into a national priority. British warships, aircraft, and naval commanders became determined to track down the battleship no matter the cost. For several tense days, Bismarck attempted to escape while British forces searched the vast Atlantic Ocean. Eventually, aircraft from the carrier HMS Ark Royal located and attacked the battleship. A torpedo damaged Bismarck's steering gear, leaving it unable to maneuver efficiently. The following day, British warships caught up with the crippled battleship and launched a final attack. On May 27, 1941, Bismarck was sunk. More than 2,000 crew members were lost. It was one of the most dramatic naval events of the entire war. Over 2,000 German sailors went down with her or into the freezing Atlantic water. Only 114 survived. And then, hours after the battle, British sailors on a nearby destroyer spotted something in the wreckage. floating on a board, surrounded by debris, in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean, was a small black and white cat. And according to the sailors who found him, he looked completely unperturbed. Not frightened, not frantic, just a cat on a board waiting to be picked up. Most cats would have become a footnote in history right there. Oscar was only getting started. The British sailors couldn't leave him there. They pulled him out of the water, brought him aboard their destroyer, HMS Cossack, and gave him a name. Now, here's something I love about this detail. In naval flag signals, the letter O, Oscar, is the code for man overboard. It's the signal you raise when someone has fallen into the sea. So these sailors, with their very particular sense of humor, looked at this cat they had just pulled from the wreckage of a German battleship and called him Oscar. Man overboard. Think about that for a second, too. This cat had just been living on a German battleship. He was technically the enemy. And the British sailors absolutely did not care. They wrapped him up, warmed him up, and made him the ship's official cat of HMS Cossack. He had switched sides without even knowing it. Now, I want to be honest with you here, because I think that is important. Some of the finer details of Sam's story have been debated by historians over the years. Wartime stories get passed between sailors, they get retold, details shift. We don't know exactly what the German ship called him originally. We don't know precisely how the rescue unfolded. But we do know this: a cat survived the sinking of the Bismarck. British sailors found him and kept him. And what happened next is documented history. For a few months, life was good again for Oscar. The crew of the Cossack adored him. He had warmth, food, companionship, everything a cat could want. And then October 1941 arrived. A German torpedo struck HMS Cossack in the North Atlantic. The damage was catastrophic. The ship was badly hit and had to be towed to Gibraltar for repairs. 159 members were killed. It was a devastating loss. Oscar survived. He was transferred to Gibraltar to recover, and honestly, at this point you have to wonder if the people around him were starting to feel a little nervous. One shipwreck is terrible luck. 2 shipwrecks starts to feel like something else entirely. From Gibraltar, Oscar was transferred to what was arguably Britain's most famous ship at the time, HMS Ark Royal. Ark Royal had actually played a role in helping track down the Bismarck, the very ship where Oscar started his journey. A massive aircraft carrier, a symbol of British naval power, one of the most important ships in the entire Royal Navy. And Oscar, this small black and white cat who had already survived 2 shipwrecks, was now living aboard her. He had been there barely any time at all. Then, on November 14th, 1941, a German torpedo found HMS Ark Royal. The ship took on water fast. Despite efforts to save her, Ark Royal sank near Gibraltar the following day. 1 crew member was killed. Hundreds were rescued. And Oscar? After the sinking, sailors found him, floating, on a board, alive, for the 3rd time. 3 separate ships, 3 separate sinkings, 1 cat. At this point, the Royal Navy made a decision that I think we can all agree was very reasonable. They decided Oscar had done enough. Whether he was lucky, blessed, or simply had a remarkable survival instinct, nobody was interested in testing fate a 4th time. He was officially retired from sea duty and brought ashore. He was given a new name, Unsinkable Sam, and it was made very clear that he would not be going back to sea, because some cats are clearly too important to risk on the ocean. Unsinkable Sam lived out the rest of his days in peace. Compared to his earlier adventures, the remainder of Sam's life was thankfully uneventful. For a time, he stayed in Gibraltar, and then he moved to Belfast, where he lived at the Home for Sailors, a home for retired seamen, which honestly feels like exactly the right place for him. He passed away in 1955, quietly, on land, which after everything he had been through, he absolutely deserved. Today, there is a portrait of him painted by artist Georgina Shaw Baker that still exists and is considered a real piece of naval history. He looks exactly like you would expect: calm, dignified, slightly unimpressed with everything around him, like a cat. I think what I love most about Sam's story is what it says about the relationship between humans and cats, even in the worst moments in history. In the middle of a world war, on sinking ships, in freezing Atlantic waters, sailors on both sides stopped to save a cat. They gave him names, they gave him warmth, they loved him. And he survived everything they went through together. That feels very cat to me. Now, there's an interesting footnote to this story. While the ships, battles, and sinkings are all very real historical events, some historians debate whether every detail of Sam's story can be fully verified. As with many famous wartime stories, parts of the tale may have grown over time as sailors retold it. But whether every detail is perfectly accurate or not, the legend of Unsinkable Sam has survived for more than 80 years, just like the cat himself seemed to survive everything that war threw at him. And honestly, that's part of what makes his story so fascinating. Ironically, many of the photographs shared online as Unsinkable Sam are actually another famous naval cat named Simon, who served aboard HMS Amethyst years later. The confusion has become part of Sam's legend. Thank you so much for watching the very first episode of Tales from the Past. If this story moved you even a little bit, subscribe, like, and share with a fellow cat lover or history fan. We have so many more incredible cat stories coming. Also, drop a comment below. I genuinely want to know, what do you think Oscar was thinking on that board? I'll see you next time on Tales from the Past.